Hey, Armand here with the forecast for the week of June 2nd, 2025. First of all, I want to point out that this forecast is coming out on Saturday morning as usual. Next week on Wednesday, June 4th, we will have the Jupiter in Cancer video, and that is going to drop, as the kids say, on June 4th. So next week's forecast will come out not on Monday, the 9th, too much going on next week, but rather on Sunday, the 8th, which this forecast covers. This week, though, we're putting the video out on Saturday, and we're talking a little bit about the weekend before. And that's because Venus is very busy on the weekend of June 1st, and well, actually May 31st and June 1st, as she well, let me point out the beginning of the week is very Venusian. We have a lot of stuff going on with Venus. It's a very exciting Venusian first half of the week. And then the back half of the week is really kind of given to Mercury and communication and things of that order. As we build towards next week, it's on the 11th, I believe, the full moon, but June 9th is a big day. We have a lot of stuff going on that day. So we're kind of getting ready this week. Still, this week has got a lot of stuff going on for it. Let's talk about it. We have the waxing moon, first of all. We're waxing. There's a lot of energy. We're going between the first quarter moon and the full moon. This is the most active phase of the lunar cycle. We're sort of up and on our feet and moving, and not quite, at that chaotic full moon era, right? We're not quite there just yet. So we're sort of moving towards that. So very active. The moon's going to go through Virgo at the beginning of the week, which is good for taking care of various tasks. And then it goes into Libra. That would be at midweek, very good for relationship kind of things. And then we find ourselves, the moon is going to be in Scorpio towards the back end of this whole situation. And then eventually is going to go into Sagittarius as we get to the full moon, but that's way in the future. So we're pretty much dealing with Virgo, Libra, and Scorpio this week. And so it's pretty good start to the week if you have stuff to do. It's a good stuff to do beginning to the week. If you have relationship stuff or even stuff having to do with valuables and things like getting anything assessed or appraised, this is a pretty significant point in time. There's some good opportunities. There are a few little pitfalls as well. So we start out at the weekend, May 31st, June 1st, with Venus, planet of love, relationship, and values, meeting with Chiron, wounds, healing wounds, something along those lines. But Eris, the goddess of discord. This could be a little bit like shaking things up just to see, just for sort of fun of it, really. Tossing the dice just to see where they land. It's not a bad energy by any stretch of the imagination. If something feels a little awkward, if the air needs to be cleared, this is a good time to do that, especially in relationships, especially in personal relationships. Good time to clear the air. Uh, it may even feel a little bit inevitable. Venus in Aries meeting with Eris, the goddess of discord. This is an exciting kind of time, an exciting sort of energy that sets the tone for that weekend, sort of before the week, before June 2nd, the week that this forecast is for. And then at midweek, Venus goes on to sextile Jupiter. Venus at the very end of Aries, which Jupiter likes quite a bit. That's actually it's his little condo out in Aries. And Jupiter at the very end of Gemini, which he's not crazy about by any stretch of the imagination, but he's getting ready to leave next week and go into Cancer. So, he's packing his bags and sort of a hopeful kind of thing. Anyway, the middle of the week, I would say even maybe Monday, but certainly Tuesday and Wednesday, great time for fun. It should be kind of a nice time. Good for socializing, good for, romance, if that's a thing. It is a good time to get things assessed and appraised. It is a good time for all kinds of business decisions. Moon in Libra, which is Venus's sign, really supports it. So Tuesday, Wednesday, good time for that sort of stuff. It's the beginning of the week, but it is a positive time. It is a time even for aesthetics, creative projects. It's all that good stuff. I'd say Tuesday and Wednesday sort of built for that. Then the energy kind of continues on Thursday as Mercury makes a nice sextile to Mars. So the planet of communication at the very end of his sign of Gemini, so he's strong and good, is connecting with Mars, the planet of action. And this is the good communication period of time. And we have quite a bit of this. We have quite a bit of this good communication stuff going on towards the end of the week. Pallas Athene, the truth teller asteroid, is going to station retrograde. But that's another thing that's happening next week on June 9th. What a long forecast that's going to be. So she's very powerful. She's in Aquarius. This is telling the truth to the public and for the public, right? And but in our personal lives too, if you need to deliver some truth, this is the time that it can be done. Mercury is making a nice sextile to Pallas Athene, while at the same time, Mars is opposing Pallas Athene. So this really stirs up the energy. This really gets things going. This is like I'm telling you how it is, telling you how I see it at any rate. That's a really, really powerful energy. It is a pretty constructive energy as well. Pallas Athene, I mean, I would think a lot of what we see with her tends to play out at the collective level more than the personal level. And yet, if there's something that needs to be said, this is another good time to say it. Maybe the relationship stuff would be more towards the middle of the week with Venus and Jupiter, or even Venus and Eris. Later in the week, I'm thinking it is more to do with things having to do with work, having to do with community, having to do with groups that you're a part of, anything, sort of collective community kind of stuff. Sometimes you got to let people know what's going on there. The thing is, the moon is going to be in Scorpio through a lot of this time. And with the moon in Scorpio, things could get a little bit tense, a little bit rough. Scorpio, the moon in Scorpio is rather protective, cautious, and it is Mars' home sign. Mars is one of the rulers of Scorpio. Mars actually is also the ruler of Aries, where Venus and Chiron and Eris are hanging out. So Mars is very involved this week. It's a planet of action. And so there's this kind of letting you know how it is kind of thing. It would be really interesting to see what happens in the collective. Although I'm finding that the less I see what's going on in the collective, the better I feel. So you guys may have to tell me about it after the fact, because I'm not so sure I'm going to watch it anymore. Then, I mean, stuff leaks in anyway. Stuff leaks in anyway. And then Mercury goes on to meet with Jupiter. This is a Sunday aspect, right? And this be active on Saturday, Sunday, really on Sunday. And this is Mercury is strong in his home sign. Jupiter is not happy in Gemini, but it kind of sort of works out. It kind of sort of works out. The danger, saying too much, blurting stuff out, just in this case, we're not telling it like it is. We're just talking and talking and talking. I should, like me right now, just too much verbiage, and maybe saying too much without really getting to the point. Sometimes, maybe, possibly letting a little bit of information leak out that you didn't really want to leak out. But let's figure that Mercury might be able to contain himself, given that Jupiter isn't particularly strong. The message is liable to be quite optimistic. You can get some optimistic stuff out there. I think also too that it's a little bit better for things having to do with technology and communication that is non-impersonable. You know what I mean? Like texts and emails and things like that. Things that I often caution against using. In this case, I think you'd probably be able to get your stuff across pretty well just texting it out. You don't have to necessarily pick up the phone and let folks know. And in fact, it might be better if you could be a little bit more concise and a little bit less expansive in what you're trying to communicate. Later in the day, Mercury goes on into Cancer. Now, in the sign of Cancer, what happens is that communication, it doesn't really become more emotionally based. That's kind of a logical way to approach it, but it's not necessarily what we find experientially. Rather, what we find experientially is that things that carry emotional impact have more weight to them. There's more uh, oomph to them. Whereas things that are just factually true or kind of dry, or even things that we're inspired about that we think are great, but not necessarily emotionally invested in, they don't have quite as much going for them. Right? Here, things that have emotional weight tend to get that message tends to get across. It's a bit of a problem. It's a bit of a problem at the collective level, and especially because, as I'll discuss next week, Mercury goes on to connect with Neptune and Saturn. And so there could be this kind of over emotional and then like a shutdown response to it. But we'll talk about that next week. Um, there we have it. There we have it. So if you've watched this far, two things. First of all, next week's forecast, as I said, comes out on Sunday. And on Wednesday, we're going to have the Jupiter in Cancer uh, video, and that's going to cover an overview, and it's going to kind of concentrate on stuff that's going on for each sign. The other thing is, and this is what I really waited for the end of the video for, and really sort of testing your patience to see who's really interested. If you would like to be involved in a short economically sound course. I'm thinking about 5 week course, maybe six, on an introduction to astrology. And you probably already know a lot of introductory stuff, but hearing it from me is different. Then you should go to the website, armanddiaz.com. It's down there. And just send me an email saying you're interested. And I need to know while you're at it, I need to know where you are, like your time zone, and I need to know what days and times, if you were going to be there in person, would be good for you. If you can't be there in person, I have every intention to make this something that you would enjoy watching the recording of and then have an opportunity to interact personally at some point or points in time additionally. So if you're interested, you're not committing to anything, but if you think you might be interested, send me an email. All right. It's a busy week. It's a fairly constructive week. Venus at the beginning, Mercury in communication at the end, Jupiter in the middle.